the good old mailbag, and Spencer scale of agreement. You submit a question, you submit a take. I rank it 1 to 10 where I am at. Here we go. Buckle up, says one of my Locked On Ducks insiders out there, because I have a scorching hot take for Spencer's scale of agreement. Say Dante Moore is QB1 this year. That's not the take. That's pretty much given. I think there's a real chance we could almost see a quarterback by committee look in the offense. Dante getting majority of the snaps and splitting a little with Novosad. Then Moga coming in almost in a gadget role similar to Tyler Warren. That, of course, was Penn State's tight end last year, who would do things like quarterback sneaks and wildcat situations. So, Dante getting... We have not seen any sort of dual quarterback system for Oregon. The only time a backup has gone into the game is when the starter's gotten hurt and can't go out there. And that's only happened a couple of times. Washington 2022, Bo Nix got dinged up. Ty Thompson went in. We know how that went, of course. That wasn't, Ty's fault or anything, but we know how that went. Then there was... What was another? Dylan Gabriel had to go out for a play against Michigan State, got his bell rung. Dante came in, seamless handoff. Sorry, I am surprised sometimes that thousands of you decide to put up with me all the time, but I'm very grateful that you do. I love doing this. So we haven't seen a lot of that. And do I think that the gap between Dante and Novosad is huge? I don't think so. I mean, Novosad's a talent. We've seen him. Not in game action, really, but in the spring games, man, that guy can make some high-level throws. I do sincerely hope he winds up being a Power 4 starter one day. I think he's got that sort of talent, and, I pointed this out after this year's spring game. Novosad was my biggest surprise after last year's spring game, 2024, but after this year, my takeaway was, hey, Dante Moore made some great throws and did a bunch of great stuff, but put the profile of those two guys, the recruiting profiles of those two guys aside, and tell me what Dante Moore was doing that Novosad wasn't. You couldn't really say anything. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because I saw some high-level throws all over the field from those guys. I mean, the deep ball that Novosad, Decorian Moore's biggest play in the spring game was off a Novosad deep ball, and that was a thing of beauty, absolute beauty. So I don't think talent-wise the gap between those two is the Grand Canyon. I do expect Dante Moore to start. And have we seen, Dante Moore last year, Ty Thompson in 2023, or Ty Thompson in 2022? We know now, we didn't necessarily at the time. We know now, especially in Lanning's first 2 years, there was no opportunity to run any sort of 2-quarterback system. I'm not a fan of it personally. I am very much in the camp of, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. I haven't seen a 2-quarterback system successfully work for a team that's trying to achieve the things that Oregon is trying to achieve this year. The best example, Tua and Jalen Hurts. Tua came in at halftime. And then the next year, Jalen Hurts was the backup, and then he transferred to Oklahoma. It's not like they actually ran a 2-quarterback system. I get really annoyed. I hear that all the time. Tua and Jalen Hurts. Like, Tua came in for a half. We were all flabbergasted, and then we saw why. Right? He provided a spark when the offense was struggling. But to say that that was a 2-quarterback system throughout the year, to my recollection, was not accurate. So the Moga part in the Wildcat, my everydayers know I have got this take. I want to see Luke Moga take snaps in the red zone. I think it can be a legitimate weapon, not just because it's fun, because I think it can be a legitimate weapon and advantage. He is the most athletic guy Oregon's had at quarterback since Marcus Mariota. That is not hyperbole. If you lined him up and did a sprint or agility test with Justin Herbert, I think Moga is going to blow him out of the water in both. Maybe not blow out of the water, but he's going to beat him, certainly in the agility part. Straight line speed, Herbert can be pretty fast. But, so quarterback by committee, because you put the Moga take in there with the gadget roll, which I can see and think would be fun, I'll put this at a 2, but, I just haven't seen the evidence that Lanning and Will Stein want to get both guys legitimate reps like that. So I think they will go with Dante Moore. And we could see Novosad play this year if Dante Moore struggles, but I think Dante Moore will be pretty darn good. So this one came in. Washington will go 7-5 with 6-6 more likely than 8-4. I predicted him to go 8-4 the other day on Locked On College Football. More on that in a moment. 4 of their first 5 conference games are against teams coming off byes when they are not. Well, I just realized I thought there was more to that question. I realized I just copied and pasted it twice. Oh, man. I am brilliant. Don't ever say I'm not good with computers. So Washington will go 7-5. Yeah, I think they're 8-4. I think 7-5 is more likely than 9-3, and 6-6 more likely than 8-4. I'm not on that particular. I'm not in that camp. I do think Washington will be a better team. Should Oregon beat them? Yeah, Vegas certainly thinks so. They're going to be 12.5 point. They are 12.5 point favorite right now in a game that's being played in Seattle. I think that's a lot. I thought it would be closer to 7-8. But the FanDuel lines have been more generous towards Oregon than I have been in my own head. That's not necessarily unique. But, Washington will go 7-5. Because you included the 6-6 part, I got to knock this down a little. I'll still give it a 7 because I do think 7-5 is incredibly reasonable. But the reason I include this on the Oregon show today is that game, the more I think about it, maybe I'll catch up with Roman again, our Locked On Huskies host, sometime in August before the season. That game scares me more than I would like it to because it is late in the year and because it is on the road. Now, on the one hand, late in the year is, I think, when Oregon will be playing its best football because all of the new pieces and parts will have had a lot of time to work themselves out and figure out who plays where and how do you do this and how do you rotate that and what's the offensive line shift, who plays in the secondary. Okay, all that will be as worked out as it possibly can by game number 12. However, that door swings both ways. And so I sent out a poll to my Locked On Ducks insiders the other day asking if Oregon were to go 10-2 with a loss to Penn State, who do you think the other loss would be? The most common responses were Iowa and Washington, road games. I do think that is correct. And this week on the Locked On Big Ten squad, I've got to pick Oregon's record. I might just go out there and say something with the right to backtrack because I might save that to the last possible moment. But we'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling that particular day. Because instinctually, I want to say 10-2, but I don't know where the loss comes. I come back to that Washington game. Do I think Washington's a Big Ten title contender as much as Oregon is? No, they're definitely not. However, was Wisconsin? No. Was that game scary? Yes. This Washington team, I think, could beat that 2024 Wisconsin team. So when you're going to be in that environment, when you're going to be, weather could play a factor as well, things could get weird. You're going to have a hostile crowd. You're going to have 2 young quarterbacks that haven't played a lot of football, but will have 11 games of starting under their belt, presuming full health, which you always hope for. And, just say it out loud. A 7-8 win team that you play on the road in a rivalry game. Does that worry you? Yeah. I think there's plenty of reason to be worried there. And as we saw, unfortunately, in the 2023 Pac-12 championship game, point spreads do not actually decide the game. They decide who Vegas, what they think is possible or what should happen. Doesn't mean it's always what should happen. So, just wanted to put that out there. Just food for thought. Just think about it. And Iowa, again, 7-8 win team that you're playing on the road with a tough crowd. I could see one of those games not going Oregon's way. I would much rather lose to Iowa than lose to Washington. And with Dan Lanning in charge, that is certainly, if you asked him, this is not a question he'd ever answer, nor one I would ask him because he might never let me ask him a question again. But if you asked him, hey, if you had to lose to either Washington or Iowa, of course his answer would be, I'd rather win them both, and that's what we're going to set out there to do. The answer is Iowa.